Imagine this. You're scrolling through Etsy and you find the most perfectly, beautifully taped tube and you want to buy it, but then you come down to the drop-down menus and you start seeing the tubing width and the tubing kind, and that's when you pause and you click out of Etsy and then you never buy the hoop.
World keeps spinning, so I do the same. Round and round and round and round. Life's too short, so go and find your game. Round and how you like me now.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Julie Zatz and I love to make videos for you guys. My goal today is to help you guys be able to figure out which hoop size and what kind of hoop tubing would be best for you as a beginner hooper. And I'm also gonna give you guys some recommendations of hoop shops that I like to get my hoops from. And yeah, finding the right hoop can be super confusing because you got polypro tubing, you got polyethylene tubing, you got 3/4 tubing, you got 5/8 tubing, you got high density polyethylene tubing, and then at some point you're just like, so my goal today is to help you guys break that down and help you guys find the most perfect beginner hoop just for you. So first I want to begin by discussing the various different types of tubing. So there's typically two main types of tubing that you're going to be using as a hooper, though there are 3 types of tubing that exist in the world, but you're mostly going to use 2 types of tubing. The first type of tubing is polypropylene tubing. And now, polypropylene is usually recommended by most people. A lot of hoopers love it because it's very fast acting, it's very lightweight, and it just feels really good when you use it. The only downside to polypro tubing is that it can't be brought outside in temperatures lower than 50 degrees because if you do, oh girl, yo tubing gon' crash. Let me just say, it freaking sucks when you're hooping outside in that 50-degree spring to summer weather and yo damn hoop cracks. So this is where you're probably gonna want to go with HDPE tubing, which is high density polyethylene tubing. Now, personally, the only benefits that I find from HDPE tubing is the fact that you can bring it outside in cold temperatures and the fact that it is a little bit more durable because it's typically a more rigid type of tubing and it's not really bouncy in a sense. Where like polypro, if you're playing with it, you will definitely feel like a rebound with the hoop, but not so much with HDPE tubing. Now, aside from HDPE tubing, you also have regular polyethylene tubing, or PE for short, and this is pretty much the tubing that you'll find at like Lowe's, Home Depot. It's like your irrigation tubing. If you're one of those hoopers that likes to make your own hoops, perhaps you can go to the Home Depot and go get yourself some PE tubing and make yourself a lovely black hoop because that's the color of the tubing. Now that we have a basis for what kind of tubing we have, again, we have polypro, we have HDPE, which is high density polyethylene, and then we have regular polyethylene, which you can go buy at the Lowe's store. So now that we have the tubing out of the way, we're going to move over to the different widths of tubing that you have. This part can get so damn confusing, but I'm gonna hopefully break it down for you guys. Really simple. So I'm gonna insert a little picture right here. This is from one of my hoop sponsors, sacredflowhoops.etsy.com. I highly recommend her shop. She has great hoops, great connections, fast shipping, just love that shop. Anywho, here's a really simple breakdown of the different types of tubing. You have 1/2 tubing, which is the thinnest of the thinnest tubing, and then you have 7/8, which is relatively thick. Now, personally, I like to use 3/4 tubing, and this is just a personal preference. Tubing widths and tubing type is definitely a personal preference. It's just kind of what you like and how you feel when you're in the hoop. One step right above the 1/2 tubing is 5/8 tubing, and now a lot of hoopers love 5/8 tubing because it's really light, it's really bouncy because it's so damn light. It's basically like you're just holding a feather while you're hooping, so some people even call 5/8 like the featherweight hoop. Again, this is all personal preference. I don't really like 5/8 hoops, especially when it comes to LED hoops. Any LED hoop that's in 5/8 tubing alone is going to be so much more prone to breaking just because it's so thin. And there's usually a lot of components inside of an LED hoop, so when you have 5/8 tubing and then all this stuff inside of the tubing, it's just so much more prone to cracking. So I typically go with 3/4 when it comes to LED smart hoops. However, some people just really do love that 5/8 featherweight feeling. So again, all personal preference. One step above the 5/8 is 11/16. This is kind of a newer tubing. They call it like the unicorn tubing. It's relatively new. I would say it came out about maybe like 3-4 years ago, 3 years ago, sometime around then. But essentially this tubing is right in between 5/8 and 3/4. I personally don't like this tubing as much as I thought I would. I have one hoop in 11/16 and I was playing with it for like about a week and I loved it because the grip of it felt like a 5/8, but the weight of it felt like a 3/4 hoop. However, I just don't know what it is, but I just really like the thicker tubing. So 11/16 really isn't my favorite, but a lot of people love it because it's right in between 5/8 and 3/4. Now, 3/4 is my favorite tubing. It's just standard for me. I just love it. Again, this is all personal preference. I just personally like 3/4 tubing. I will typically recommend people just starting with 3/4 tubing just because 5/8 can generally be a little bit too light for beginner hooping, but I do really love 3/4 for beginner hooping. For advanced hooping, intermediate hooping, 3/4 has been with me the whole way through, so I just love 3/4 tubing. The next step above 3/4 tubing is the thickest, which is 7/8 tubing, and I like to call this the ancient tubing because I don't really know anybody that hoops with this tubing unless they're a beginner hooper. This hoop tubing is great for beginner hoops because it's really, really thick and it'll allow the hoop to move so much slower, and you're gonna want a bigger, slower hoop when you're first learning hooping because it's gonna be way too hard to try to learn how to do a vortex with a 26-inch 5/8 hoop. Girl, I'm telling you right now, you need a bigger hoop. It really does make all the difference. You can't do on body with like a thin, light little hoop. So the beginner hoop that I used when I first started was a 38-inch beginner hoop from Mood Hoops. It was like galaxy taped. It was really cool. I'll insert a picture right here. Now that hoop is at my niece's house because my nieces stole it from me because they want us to learn how to hoop, so I don't have that hoop anymore. But you can go get yourself a beginner Mood Hoop and they're great. I know this seems really biased because I'm sponsored by Mood Hoops, but if I still had my beginner hoop, I would still use it. I'm always using bigger hoops for like a better workout, and I was using my beginner hoop from Mood Hoops for about like 2 years before I gave it away to my nieces, so we can definitely get a lot of good use out of their beginner hoops. Okay, so now that we've talked about the tubing types and the tubing widths, I wanna help you guys pick the right size for you to begin hooping. So I'm gonna categorize this as if you are 5 feet and shorter and then 5 feet and taller. And I don't know why I'm picking 5 feet. I just feel like this is a good height to go with. I don't know, just bear with me here. So if you're about 5 feet and taller, I'm going to recommend that you use any hoop between 34 to 38 inches. The reason for using a larger hoop is that, like I said earlier, a larger hoop will go around the body slower and it's gonna give you more time to react to the hoop and be able to do these tricks and learn them. For instance, let's say you're trying to learn how to do a vortex and you're using like a 26-inch 5/8 hoop, it's gonna go around your waist really, 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 really fast. And it's gonna pose to be really impossible to pick up the hoop and bring it above your head to do a vortex. It's just so hard. So I really do recommend using a hoop somewhere between 34 to 38 inches to begin with. I do recommend Polypro tubing just because it's lighter, it's not so heavy. So if you are 5 feet and above, I would recommend any hoop between 34 to 38 inches in 3/4 Polypro tubing. And then for my people who are a little bit on the short end, I would recommend using any hoop between like 30 to 34 inches. You can go a little bit bigger if you want. I'm just gonna put it short and just say 30 to 34 because I'm thinking of my nieces who are really short and those are good sizes for them. So I'm just gonna go off of that. But obviously this is all arbitrary. This is all personal preference. Go ahead and do whatever you want. I'm just going to say from my personal experience, it was so much easier to learn with a big, big, big hoop and a thicker tubing in the beginning. So now that we've gone over the tubing types, the tubing widths, and the tubing sizes that you can use, I now want to give you guys some recommendations of my favorite hoop shops. I know this is totally biased because these are my sponsors, but I do love these hoop shops and I would never be sponsored by a hoop shop that I didn't feel was 100% up there. I only ever do sponsorships with companies that I either have shopped from for a very long time or know really well. I would never just like obviously pick a random sponsorship. So the first one I want to recommend is moodhoops.com. They are just the top of the top. They sell regular day hoops, they sell LED hoops, they sell silk fans, they sell poi, they sell freaking everything. So I would just recommend starting there. They do have a category called beginner hoops, which I would just say go get one of those if you have the money to get one. My code JUPES gets you 5% off. Just really love Mood Hoops. They have freaking everything. They have tons of tubing colors, tons of options. So yeah, I'd recommend Mood Hoops beginner hoop. If you just don't know where to start, just go get yourself like a 38 or a 39-inch beginner Mood Hoop from Mood Hoops. It will serve you such a long time. My second favorite hoop shop is sacredflowhoops.etsy.com. She's got a ton of selection of different types of tubing and colors, and she just has so many freaking options when it comes to tubing and hoops. So I highly recommend her. If you have any questions, you can just message me below and I will be happy to help you guys out. Again, you can use my code JUPES for a discount at Sacred Flow Hoop. Also, if you're a little bit more of an intermediate hooper and you're looking for a cool tape tube, this is like further down the line, like once you've already learned your beginner tricks, I recommend checking out my really awesome reflective sponsor, Sequoia Feliz. Her shop is koyashoops.etsy.com. She just has such cool reflective hoops. She makes really cool concept hoops like hexagon hoops and star hoops and triangle hoops and fuzzy hoops, and I've never seen anybody do the types of hoops that she's done. So if you are in the more like intermediate advanced hooping level, I would recommend checking out her shop. She just has such cool tapes, and yeah, I just love Sequoia and her hoops. So okay, so I really hope this helped you guys find your first hoop. I know it can be so damn confusing because you got like all these different types of tubings and widths and sizes, etc. But again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. I would be more than happy to help you guys find your perfect beginner hoop. And you guys can also message me on Instagram. I will link everything in the description below, all my socials and everything in case you need it. If you have not already subscribed, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. It would mean the world to me. And also don't forget to smash that like button. Thank you guys so much and have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Mwah.